parents had the craziest rule for me ever, and it's finally come back to bite them. As a kid, my parents didn't just want my obedience, they wanted to own my thoughts. The best example I can give is when I was 7 years old, sitting at the dinner table. My mom asked me what I'd learned at school that day. I started telling her about dinosaurs, how they lived millions of years ago. My dad's fork clattered onto his plate. He looked at me with this cold expression and said, "That's not what you learned. You learned about God's creation, which is only 6,000 years old." I was confused. That wasn't what my teacher said. But when I tried to explain, my mom grabbed my wrist. She told me that if I ever contradicted them again, if I ever chose to believe someone else over them, it meant I didn't love them. From that day on, they made me keep a journal. Every night, I had to write down my thoughts and let them read it. If they found anything they didn't like, a crush on a boy they hadn't approved, an opinion that differed from theirs, they'd sit me down for correction sessions. They'd explain why my thoughts were wrong until I agreed with them, until I couldn't tell the difference between what I actually thought and what they'd planted in my head. Fast forward to me as an adult. I work as a therapist now. Ironic, I know. I help other people untangle their thoughts. But when it came to planning my own wedding, all those old patterns came back. At first, James and I were excited. We found this beautiful outdoor venue with string lights and a garden. But the second my parents arrived for the tour, my mom's face went dark. Outdoor weddings attract the wrong kind of attention. People will think we're hippies. Without even realizing it, I felt my own thoughts shifting. By the time we left, I was apologizing to James for wasting everyone's time with such a stupid idea. It got worse from there. My parents didn't just veto my choices, they rewrote my memories of making them. When I showed them the dress I loved, a simple sheath with delicate beading, my mom tilted her head and said, "Oh honey, you never liked simple things. Remember how you always said you wanted to look like a princess?" I didn't remember saying that. But the more she talked, the more I started to doubt myself. They did this with everything. The menu, the flowers, the music. James noticed. One night, about a month before the wedding, he sat me down with his laptop. He'd created a spreadsheet documenting every decision we'd made, when we'd made it, and how it had changed after my parents got involved. I could see it. The realization made me sick. The rehearsal dinner was at my parents' country club. Halfway through dinner, my mom stood up to give a toast. She smiled at the crowd and began telling stories about my childhood, except they weren't real stories. She talked about how I'd always been difficult until they'd taught me to think correctly, how I used to have silly ideas until they'd helped me see reason. I felt something crack inside me. I looked at James, and he was gripping his napkin so tight his knuckles were white. My maid of honor, Sarah, had tears in her eyes, not happy ones. When my mom sat down, my dad stood up. He started talking about how grateful I should be for parents who molded my mind so carefully. That's when I stood up. "Stop," I said. My voice was barely above a whisper, but in that quiet room, everyone heard it. My dad frowned. "Sweetheart, I'm not finished." I said stop. This time it was louder. I looked around the room. None of this is true. None of these stories. You want to know the truth? My parents made me keep a thought journal as a kid. They read it every night and punished me for having the wrong feelings. The room went dead silent. My mom's face had gone pale, then red. "How dare you air family business?" "Family business?" I laughed, but it came out harsh. "You mean psychological abuse? You mean the fact I was gaslit by my own parents until my fiancé had to show me a spreadsheet of evidence?" My dad stood up. "You're being dramatic. We only ever wanted what was best. You wanted a puppet." I cut him off. "You wanted someone who couldn't think for themselves. Well, congratulations. You got it." I turned to James. "I want to leave now." But as we started to walk out, my mom called after me. "Go ahead, leave. But you should know, James isn't who you think he is. Why don't you ask him about the conversations he's been having with us behind your back?" I froze. James's face had gone white. "What is she talking about?" He couldn't meet my eyes. I was trying to help. "They called me a few months ago. They said they were worried about you, that you'd been showing signs of instability." I thought, "You've been talking to them behind my back?" My voice was deadly quiet. "Not like that. I was documenting everything they said. I wanted to show you how manipulative they were, but I needed evidence first. That's why I made the spreadsheet. I've been recording our conversations." Sarah stepped forward, pulling out her phone. "He's telling the truth. He sent me the recordings asking for my professional opinion. James has 3 months of recorded calls where your parents tried to convince him you were mentally unstable, that you needed to be institutionalized. They were planning to use his testimony to have you committed." The room erupted. My parents were shouting denials, but Sarah was already playing one of the recordings. I listened to my parents try to convince my fiancé that I was crazy, that my memories were false, that I needed to be locked away, and I listened to James push back every single time. I looked at my parents one last time. They weren't denying it anymore. They just stood there, exposed. "We're done," I said simply. "Don't contact me. Don't come to the wedding. Don't ever come near me again." As we walked out, James, Sarah, and me, my mom shouted one last thing. "You'll be back. You can't think for yourself. You need us." Full story on channel linked below.